an information technology specialist, MLS code 25 Bravo in the U.S. Army. And for a few years, I was stationed in the region beneath Pacific Command. During this time, my primary job was monitoring network traffic on what's known as SIPRNet, or the network for the DoD that is responsible for transmitting any level of classified information. So classified, secret, top secret, that was compartmentalized information. And that was the network where I, either early 2019 or late 2018, started to see a massive spike in abnormal communications between authorized users within Pacific Command to authorized users with IP addresses that I could recognize 100% of the time as belonging to Pentagon employees, either uniformed contractors, civilian employees, intelligence officials, something of that nature. And a lot of these communications were related to picking up underage prostitutes. In particular around certain parts of Tokyo, as well as the Philippines and certain regions in South Korea. It's never once on an unclassified network. Emails, communications, live chats regarding trading child pornography, engaging in prostitution, and generally speaking, the receiving end was an IP that was attached to the Pentagon in some way, shape, or form. I forwarded this information up to my supervisor, who then got me in touch with CID, which is the Army's sort of federal law enforcement. They investigate these big crimes like felonies. They don't waste their time on DUIs. Handed over some more documentation regarding what I found and how specifically this stuff was incriminating, and I still have yet to receive any update.
Before we get to the new findings, consider what you just heard. Testimony from an Army veteran alleging to have observed high-ranking military officials trading child pornography over top-secret channels. This does not appear to be the first time this has happened to the Pentagon. In parts 1 and 2, I opted against providing arguments or giving too much of my opinion. This was a mistake, as it led to some confusion. So expect some light unpacking here and there. What you're about to see are some new findings regarding Pizzagate, which are disturbing, to say the least, but they're also eye-opening. If you still think Pizzagate is debunked, hopefully this video will challenge you. But first, an exploration of these pedophile networks and their apparent use of cryptography. This is an FBI bulletin, and it details symbols used by organized pedophiles. And it was published by WikiLeaks in 2007. There are some people who think this document is bogus. These people are wrong, because the pedophiles who created these symbols did so a decade before this FBI bulletin was leaked. The origins could be a bit further back, of course. But officially speaking, the quote, boy lover logo was copyrighted in 1997. Evidence for this can be found on boywiki.org, a group of pedophiles who referred to their most prominent symbol, this symbol, as a, quote, spiringle. These symbols are also in a 2006 New York Times article, but in black and white. Some of these pedophiles have even created, quote, art to symbolize their evil deviancies. According to BoyWiki, modifications and variations of these symbols will be tolerated and indeed are encouraged. While this FBI bulletin has definitely helped researchers locate potential networks, it's also made a lot of people insane. And many have emailed me about this actualized YouTube channel.
In this episode, I want to lay out the core principles of actualized.org.
asserting that he's a pedophile, or very likely a pedophile. The reason they give is because of his logo. It is pretty similar. I can certainly understand why many felt the need to send this to me. But here's the problem. If you see one of these pedophile symbols on a children's program, or a children's toy.
Secret language used by pedophiles, so how in the world did it end up on a souvenir toy?
Then of course that in and of itself is a problem, because it could potentially give people, pedophiles especially, the wrong idea. But in the case of actualized.org, is there anything else we can point to, besides just the symbol, that warrants suspicion? Is his channel made for kids? Is he a convicted pedophile? Has anyone come forward alleging abuse? Is there anything? The answer is no. So if we cannot pair the symbol with something, then we effectively have nothing. We certainly don't have enough to constitute some kind of investigation, right? Someone sent me an image of JoJo Siwa, she's a famous YouTuber, with a painted heart on her face. They suggested maybe she was being groomed, because the girl lover symbol is also a heart, right? But these hearts don't look anything alike. With the exception of child lover, every one of these symbols emphasizes a spiral-like characteristic, none of which are present here. Okay, we have to be able to draw hearts, or see hearts, without equating them to sex trafficking. It also doesn't help that the little boy lover symbol, for instance, is a relatively common thing to draw, especially for children, but this was done by design. These pedophiles wanted the little boy lover logo to appear like a little boy's scrawl. In 2008, flyers were released in New Britain, Connecticut, warning neighbors that alleged pedophiles John Sperling and Jeff Brisson, aka the Night Raven and Astram, lived nearby and were dangerous.
This is the flyer that led New Britain police to 39-year-old John Sperling and 29-year-old Jeff Brisson. The two men were arrested back in January for the alleged sexual assault of a 14-year-old boy and a 3-month-old girl.
They determined that Mr. Brisson had sexually assaulted the 3-month-old, that infant that was on scene.
So who was it exactly that created this symbol?
Accused of committing horrific crimes and posting proof on the internet.
So just because this symbol is relatively common, it doesn't mean we throw our hands up and just give up. Voodoo Donuts, for instance. You almost couldn't make their logo look more like the Little Boy Lover logo if you tried. Of course, this doesn't prove anything nefarious, but we can at least pair the Voodoo Donuts symbol with testimony.
When I found out that the party I was brought to was the owner of Voodoo Donuts, this specific time it was Trace Shannon, the way that this party was described to me is that what's happening out front is this, and this is where people are doing drugs and people are doing sexual shit in the back. Then I see kids being brought into the back. Then I'm asking, who are these kids? Who are their parents? And that immediately drew attention onto me.
Former Instagram user and self-proclaimed pedophile Cage openly shared his boy lover tattoos on the platform with the hashtags pedo, gay pedo, boy love triangle, boy love, and others. Now, how do you think Instagram responded when a user reported his account for hate speech or symbols? Well, apparently, pedophiles sharing their pedophile tattoos doesn't go against their community guidelines. And one of the accounts who liked this post belonged to a New York Times best-selling children's book author.
It won the 2004 Oppenheim Toy Portfolio Gold Award. It sold more than 2 million copies.
And the first video on this author's Twitter shows him giving a, quote, shout-out to a kindergarten.
Eat some macaroni and cheese, my favorite food, and I hope that you read and practice reading because it will make you feel really good.
But are there any other examples showing the apparent use of these pedophile codes. Well, you tell me.
Wow, something smells good! Yeah, let's go! Yum, 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 yum.
Okay, that looks like a spiral triangle. Typically a swirl like this would or should never raise red flags. But the fact that it's right next to a spiral triangle, and that they're both on a massive children's channel, I hope we can at least agree that if this is all a coincidence, then the creators should at least be informed on the similarities these symbols have with pedophile codes. But that's actually not all. In part 1, I briefly showed how the word yummy was being used by pedophiles in a sexual way toward children.
There are piping hot and yummy foods from around the world.
This could potentially be inspired by Justin Bieber's newest single. Leading up to his new album, Bieber posted several images of babies next to the hashtag yummy. Publicity stunt or otherwise, in the darker corners of the internet, the term yummy has donned a new and much more deviant association. That said, there is simply no real way for me to know the intentions of the creators of this video. But I guess that's the point, isn't it? Many people ask, why would pedophile networks risk exposing themselves by using these relatively well-known symbols? I would argue because it's a win-win. On one hand, you can signal to the relevant individuals or groups. And, unless you say, hey, look at me, I'm a pedophile, like Cage, then you actually have the benefit of plausible deniability.
They said, we're shocked, we had no idea, we reacted immediately. I think this story's being blown out of proportion, obviously, because I don't think this company knew that this was a sign of pedophilia.
So if we postulate that pedophile networks like to communicate together in public, cryptically, and I would argue that the existence of these symbols in the first place really does validate this notion. And if we combine that with the benefit of plausible deniability, then the question is not why would pedophile networks use these symbols, even to this day. The question is, why wouldn't they?
More than a dozen men, including Disney employees, are facing jail time after they're caught in an undercover sex bust. The men wanted to have sex with the underage boys and girls.
Disney workers among the 11 Bay Area men arrested and accused of keeping child pornography.
Transitioning from Disney to this was fucking easy. I don't know, getting molested for fucking from your 6 to your 14 seems like way harder circumstances.
Not talked about in the media at all. No. Epstein was, but this wasn't talked about at all.
He's 73 years old and he was just sentenced to 7 years. It makes you wonder, all those years, his position at Disney, being the vice president, what else has he done? I had to dig for this story, and it's not on any mainstream media news outlet anywhere. It makes you wonder, all those years, his position at Disney, being the vice president, what else has he done?
This man, Brian Peck, worked at Nickelodeon. He was convicted of raping a child on the set. And a year later, he was hired by Disney to work on the show The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Seriously, you should have some pizza later.
In 2012, he was hired by his longtime friend, Charlie Sheen, to work alongside him on the show Anger Management.
When we were growing up, it's no secret that producer's sleeping with this actress or that, or watch out for that guy, he likes little boys.
And according to Corey Feldman, both Brian and Charlie had a similar penchant for young boys.
He said Charlie Sheen raped him.
Shit, I've personally heard a story about Charlie and Corey Haim, probably, I don't know, at least a dozen people probably in my inner circle knew.
He told me Charlie bent me over in between two trailers and put Crisco oil on my butt and raped me. In broad daylight, anybody could have walked by, anybody could have seen it.
It's difficult for a sex offender to get a job at Walmart, much less Disney, much less around kids. But somehow, Brian Peck was able to get both. How was that possible?
I've loved horror movies since I was a kid.
Director Victor Salva served only a brief stint in jail for raping a young boy and even filming some of it. He has since enjoyed a lucrative career, hired multiple times by Disney to direct feature-length films.
We ordered a bunch of pizzas and we let Sal do every weird thing he could think of to the guys who delivered them. We ordered a bunch of pizzas and we let Sal do every weird thing he could think of to the guys who delivered them.
And everything I've ever known, I've ever loved, stranded.
It is not just a law enforcement problem, it is a societal problem, and we all need to work on it together.
Again, a symbol is not everything. But law enforcement is made aware of the symbology of all criminal enterprises, pedophiles included. Why did they do this? Plan International is an organization that, quote, supports thousands of children worldwide. The head of their Belgium division is Regina de Prabandere.
Mesdames et messieurs les parlementaires, monsieur le ministre, c'est un grand plaisir pour moi de vous rencontrer pour témoigner des réalités vécues par les filles dans ma communauté et dans mon pays. Je m'appelle Adeline Ouemou, j'ai 17 ans. Et je viens du Bénin, plus précisément de la Takora, au nord du pays. Je viens d'avoir mon bac et dans quelques jours, je vais entamer des études de droit à l'université. Je veux devenir magistrat.
I remember when I was in England, we were preparing some young English boys. They're from very... preparing them for First Communion.
Cardinal George Pell, Vatican treasurer, found guilty of child sex abuse, the most senior Vatican official ever convicted of child sex offences. He told the court Pell assaulted them after Mass, forced him to perform oral sex on him.
It's crucial to understand that historians have provided ample evidence showing the full extent of Catholic symbology. You can go on to the very end, and you'll never find a triangle that wraps around itself, right? So why is Pope Francis wearing it? Why was the symbol embroidered in that particular shade of blue? And of all days, why on International Youth Day? Maybe the Pope's symbol here really is just a misunderstanding. But if it's not, then we have to be prepared for what that would mean about the world we live in.
Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep.
in order for this video to stay up, it's important that I don't reveal everyone's identity. Instead, I'll be showing first names or giving aliases, and placing black blocks or entirely blurring faces. To confirm that these findings are true, visit the YouTube channel Memory Hold. Let's begin with this man, who I'll refer to as Jim. Jim is a very powerful and influential person connected to the DC establishment. According to White House visitor files, he made 3 trips there in 2012. Hillary Clinton has written a personal thank you letter to Jim. He's one of the founders of the now infamous DC pizzeria, Comet Ping Pong. And among Jim's circle of friends, which are many, include former Democratic super lobbyist Tony Podesta. As I see it, Pizzagate is not about proving a sex ring. Pizzagate is about asking simple questions, like why does a Democratic super lobbyist, like Tony Podesta, have art like this? One of Tony's favorite pieces was Louise Bourgeois' The Arch of Hysteria, inspired by the contorted bodies of the female hysterics during Freud's psychoanalysis. And right next to it, as you can see here, Tony placed a cardboard cutout of his apparent Roman Catholic friend. According to Metro Weekly, Tony would hand out fresh pizza while his guests browsed his collections. As said before, the artists are not necessarily to blame here. It's the fact they're all collected by one person that's the most unsettling. In part 1, I showed this image from Instagram user Miss Summer. And as you can see here, Jim commented sex. The same user posted this picture of a little girl holding a watermelon with the end of a tagline saying priceless. He said priceless isn't the word most people use upon tasting me. In part 1, I showed some disturbing rhetoric from the artist Majestic Ape, who has performed several times at Comet Ping Pong.
He likes the world sounds.
And little boys. And children.
I think that was his manager.
No.
We all have preferences.
This is a music video, which features Majestic Ape. Let's take a closer look at some of those images.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. The end. How did you like that one? Yes.
According to the New York Times, this person, Miss Summer, who we just mentioned, DJ'd for a DC event in the Adams Morgan neighborhood of Washington. Online magazine Brightest Young Things said the pageant actively discourages publicity. They went on to say that, quote, in the past, a media blackout was employed to protect the powerful lobbyists, congressional staffers, and occasional elected officials who donned dresses for the night.
This may be the best of all.
So this begs another simple question. Why is a man who talks about little girls tasting him partying with elected officials? Pizzagate is not a theory, or it shouldn't be a theory. It's simply an observation of bizarre, sexually deviant, and pedophilic behavior coming from a group closely associated with DC elites, or from the elites themselves. Now, what I'm about to show you is much worse than anything you've just seen. Credit for these findings goes to Memory Hold. In this image, uploaded by Jim, the user JBSmith614 is tagged. The same user is tagged here by an Instagram user named Geo. And here are some images from Geo. In this picture, he hashtags the word choke. He posted this image of a young child with their face pushed up against a window. Some kind of bathhouse filled with what is hopefully fake blood. Geo hashtags murder. Apparent satanic imagery in front of the Virgin Mary. Geo posted an image of a man wearing a thong next to a young child with the comment, "Visiting my little cousin." Here he's naked in what looks like some kind of eccentric sex party, potentially. Geo leaves a heart emoji to this image of a young girl. If we click on the image, it reveals that the girl is, quote, professional Instagrammer talent Sonia Mohava, who is 19 years old. But Geo posted this in 2016, so that would actually make Sonia around 15 when he uploaded this. Also, this image could have been taken even before 2016. So that means she could be 13 or 14 here. Think about that for a second. In the case of Geo, well, he was the fashion designer for the Puma Fenty boots worn here by Rihanna. So the same man who designs shoes for A-list celebrities posts videos like this commenting, "Pederast dance in front of the church with little teens." Multiple images of dead cats. Geo also tags someone who, by the looks of it, owns a goat farm, an animal that Geo seems to really, really like. Geo uploads a movie trailer for a film called Blossom Valley. The film is about a couple who kidnap a newborn baby. Geo tagged a user we'll refer to as Beth. According to Beth's Instagram, her and Geo are or were a couple. She commented, "My pedo babe." A close-up of Geo's tie seems to support this notion. Here's Beth with a goat saying, "Fucking killed it, I don't give a damn, and I don't give a fuck." Two kids pretending to be hanged. This image saying, "Last Christmas, I killed them all." A child don't know what bad is. Sacrifice Sunday. A cartoon depicting necrophilia. In a few instances, Beth looks to have incurred real black eyes, as if someone punched her. Here is a spider in her mouth. Another bigger spider, she comments, "My kid of relationship." Here she says, "My uncle loves Carla more than his wife." Fetish Easter ceremony last night. And here is her smiling in front of a sign that says serial killer. Striving for a piece of Lucifer? Sending nudes and eating shit and killing kids, #me. Kissing a bull skull saying my daddies and my uncles. Here she comments, "meat diet." In this image, she hashtags EU Cannibal, which is apparently the name of one of her music projects. And this was one of Beth's stories. I have to say, that looks like real blood and real bruises, right? So this infant looks to have a genuinely black eye. So how did that happen? I ran this picture through an image search, and it pulled up nothing. So it's apparently not from a movie or anything of that nature. So there's that. In this post, uploaded by Jim, we see a user we'll refer to as Nil. Nil shared some work on her Facebook from an artist named Enrique, saying, quote, "These are great." And here are some of the images she thought were great. In this image, uploaded by Jim, we see a user named Kev who posted this image. Notice the shirt Kev is wearing here. The exact same image is posted here on an Instagram profile with a variant name, The Kev. The Kev posted an image of Macaulay Culkin. A user said, "Gross, puberty gross." A store called Happy Kids World. One user says, "I know how much you love kids." Another user, Itza, says, "Those damn kids were never happy." Itza uploaded this image, commenting, "Ideal boy." This picture was posted by Jim. Notice the user CB. CB uploaded a baby doll with what appears to be fake blood on it. An antique illustration of a boy tied up and about to be set on fire. A van with what looks to have no seats in the back and sealed off windows. CB says, "Yes, it appears Arch has discovered there is money in human trafficking." And he also posted some art from Kara Walker. Here is similar work from Walker. So if you still think there's nothing to Pizzagate, then it's likely you believe that all of these suspicious patterns are just edgy jokes or attempts to provoke. So is this an example of human trafficking, quote, hiding in plain sight? Or are they just joking? Well, I don't know. And it's because of my uncertainty that I remain unconvinced that everyone here is just playing around. It's crucial to remember just who these people are associated with, some of whom I haven't even revealed yet. But first, this is Nora, whose family are close associates with Jim. She used to live in D.C. just down the street from Comet Ping Pong.
So I grew up in D.C., which in a neighborhood that was pretty much 80% CIA operatives. J. Edgar Hoover lived up the road. We had a Czechoslovakian safe house on the corner. And I thought I had remembered it sort of extremely, but I just saw an old friend of mine and he was like, no, you know, our dad taught us how to make guns and make Molotov cocktails, and, you know, they would blow them up in embassy driveways for fun. And, you know, it was totally bizarre, but normal.
An apparent CIA neighborhood. Okay. Nora appears to also believe in time travel.
As you know, I'm really interested in time travel.
I'm reading Thomas Bearden now.
Okay.
Gravitobiology and scalar time energy.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
The person taking the video of Nora is former CIA spy Robert Steele.
I have been a spy. I'm out from undercover.
It's bizarre to hear someone as credentialed as he speak so definitively about the more obscure theories surrounding child sex trafficking.
Now that we've had Pizzagate, for example, which opened people's mind.
And by the way, the painting that you allowed us to use as the cover for Pedophilia and Empire is really rocking.
Steele wrote the foreword to the book Pedophilia and Empire, and Nora drew the cover. The book claims the world is run by, quote, planetary controllers who are blood-feasting pedophiles.
We have people in the United States of America that breed children in order to sell them. And when they are sold, they come without birth certificates, which means it's easier to kill them and have no one ask where they are. We're also importing children by the plane load. Again, children who have no documentation. It's not just child slavery or child sex abuse, it's also child torture, because you have adrenalized blood. You have the whole blood drinking ceremony of the satanic world. All of the child services agencies across the United States of America, they did not start out as organizations to prey on children, but they attract pedophiles. And ultimately, pedophiles end up rising in the ranks and controlling those organizations, so that an organization that initially started out in the service of children becomes an organization that is in fact hunting children.
While I'm skeptical of both Nora and Steele, a part of me is preserving judgment. In Nora's case, her art and self-expression is fundamentally different from nearly everyone else in this group.
And then forgiveness is the gateway.
To forgive is divine.
To forgive is divine, and to forgive is to be free.
And her contribution to a book, like Pedophilia and Empire, unless it's their attempt at disinformation, is an action I wouldn't expect from anyone else we've spoken about. Okay. Now it's time for the final thing. Now, I'm sure you remember Beth, right? Well, here she is on the Instagram profile of a man named Walt. So this guy, Walt, co-manages the Midland Fashion Agency with a woman named Rachel C. The images on Rachel's Instagram and from her apparent friends on her Tumblr continue this deviant theme. Again, Pizzagate is about asking simple questions, like, why is Rachel under the arm of the 42nd President of the United States? But it gets even worse, because in 2017, the same Rachel, who was flying in private jets with Bill Clinton, promoted these two models, both of whom worked for another modeling agency called MC2. Now, who do you think donated large sums of money to MC2? Who got children trafficked to them from MC2? Unsealed New York federal court documents allege that the owner of MC2 modeling agency, Jean-Luc Brunel, trafficked 3 12-year-old girls to Jeffrey Epstein, and that the girls were taken from within MC2. So it's one thing to be an edgy provocateur, or to try and shock with satanic imagery. But when you're associated with the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, the quote, edgy defense starts to look just desperate and pathetic, frankly. Snopes claimed that the plane in this image likely belonged to either Ron Burkle or Canadian businessman Frank Giustra, who's flown with Clinton on numerous occasions. And Frank is the founding patron of the Boys Club Network, which emphasizes boy leadership and has only boy summer camps. Frank is also the founder of the Elpida Project, which is essentially a big building in Greece that houses refugees. And this is Elpida's logo. It used to have a symbol positioned just behind the letters. Now, what do you think their symbol was before they decided to change it? Might it have had something to do with Frank's apparent passion for boys? For many of us, 2020 is the year we see the world with a new pair of glasses. May they help us notice and confront malevolence and bring the innocent to the light of the world.
The military will talk about things like professionalism and standards, ethics, moral and legal judgment. And then to one day kind of stumble upon this really makes you reconsider a life choice, makes you consider your values. I think anyone that has an inkling of a doubt that someone is sexually abusing a kid wants to probably pound that person's face in, and that's the moment I was at. But when you're dealing with, you know, lieutenant colonels and above, or you're dealing with people who make way more money and have way more influence with high-ranking people than you do, you're also very afraid.